As the Chiefs get into the combine, what are their top priorities, knowing they have some moves coming, and where should they get them? We're going to get knee-deep into it today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. This is Locked On Chiefs, part of the Locked On Network. Your team every day and on every platform for free. That is the big deal. Like, sub, and hit the bell on YouTube. Leave us an iTunes review. Let us know what you're thinking over on the audio side as well. We would certainly appreciate it. Thanks for always making us your first listen. Check out another Locked On show for your second listen today, maybe the Locked On NFL Draft Show. Me and Croc are doing some fun things over there. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, the home of the Athletic Matrix that you'll hear about after this combine wraps up, as well as RGR Football and the LO NFL Draft Show. A lot going on today, Chris.
You have a lot that you have going on, period. And I'm Chris Clark, founder of Chiefs Corner. You can find me there. And you can find me usually tweeting from the Locked On Chiefs Twitter account. There's a lot going on. And you bring up who Kansas City needs to be looking for in the draft and free agency. But I do want to say really quick, I did find it very interesting that Brett Veach came out and said that Frank Clark's number is a little, what was the word he used? High. So I think that, maybe it wasn't high, but it was something similar to that. So I think that that's something to watch going forward. They're going to have to make a move of some sort.
Clearly. And we touched base with Matt yesterday about this as well. And he kind of took it the same way, that it's reinforcing what we've been saying for the last few weeks, that this is a situation that just cannot go unresolved. It must happen. Right. The question becomes, though, is what will Frank's market be outside of the Chiefs organization, and does that allow them to bring him back in a cheap 1 year, $6 to $8 million range that's incentive laden, that maybe you make him a designated pass rusher and you draft a pass rusher of the future and you just try to get funky with it all and get as many pass rushers you can on this roster.
Which actually brings us into what we're going to actually talk about today, the draft and free agency. But I do want to say, when it comes to Frank, I will be shocked if he would take that type of contract. But the thing about that type of contract with Kansas City specifically, or with any team actually, he would be able to have a contract that would be incentive laden, and you could make it not likely to be earned. Like if he got 10 sacks, he got a huge bonus. Or if he got 12 sacks or whatever you want to do, as long as you make it not likely to be earned, it doesn't go against the cap this year. And they can do those types of things, and they're going to be very happy to pay that bonus if he hits those marks.
Absolutely. That's the big difference. And I think it all does come down to what the public perception is of him and his off-field stuff. And that's one thing that unfortunately is going to have to take place in free agency, because they're going to have to release him before any of that happens. I don't think this can be done as an extension. I don't think it helps the bottom line or the numbers or the dead money or the cap at all.
Nope,
so it's got to be a clean cut. Let him explore, and then it's a possible re-sign.
Yeah, and you also have to think that this also plays into what they're going to do with Orlando Brown, because Veach also made a comment that sounds like they're headed towards a franchise tag. They can't franchise tag Brown right now, at least as far as we know, because they don't have the cap room to do it. So that's a move they have to make in order to just get that process started. So,
yeah, they have to make that move. They have to do the restructure that they're prepared to do every year on Patrick Mahomes' contract to convert that roster bonus. There are things that have to be done, but it's all leading up to how do you and what do you have to prioritize positionally in order to reinforce this roster for the 2022 season.
Yep. No, I completely agree. And so let's go ahead and get into position groups. Let's start on the defense really quick. Defensive end. I think that's one of the first position groups we got to address. I think that they do need talent on the defensive end. Obviously, Melvin Ingram's going to be a free agent. We expect Frank Clark to be a free agent. Alex Okafor is a free agent. You need players at that position.
Is there a position they don't need players at? I'm just asking.
Not really on defense, unfortunately. Safety right now. I mean, if they don't bring Tyrann Mathieu back, which is another question that we just don't have an answer to.
Well, I think we do have an answer to that. I don't think it can be anything like he wants it to be. If it were a sweetheart deal, sure. Dan Sorensen's out as well. So you have two safeties on the roster. Zane Anderson, I'm not counting right now because I don't know that he's ready. So there's literally no position that they can't use some reinforcement in. Not necessarily a starter, although I would still consider the third linebacker a starter. A lot of teams in this league would not.
What about defensive tackle?
I think you have to have depth there as well.
Okay.
I mean, your top two rotational guys with Chris Jones and Derek Nottie and Jaron Reed are free agents.
Right. But Saunders is going to be back and Wharton is a piece. So I still think, so I think that you have three guys there. So I don't see that as big of a need. Although if the right guy is sitting there, defensive tackle, and they're on the board, I would take him.
Yeah. And that is, we'll get into where and when and how, but certainly you need a defensive tackle. You have to have a starter. And in my opinion, you have to have one. I think Derek Nottie should return, but I think he needs to return as the backup because you have to go pass rush first. There's no more excuses. There's no more time. You have to get pass rush.
Yeah, and I'm glad you point that out because that's one of the things that we looked at in one of our Monday mock drafts was we took a defensive tackle and we got hammered for it because the Chiefs already have Chris Jones. And I'm like, you don't understand. If they had two DTs that could push the pocket, create havoc in the middle, how much that's going to help the entire defense.
Yeah. Yeah. And that will become abundant. Fans might not be ready to hear from us yet. And folks, we appreciate you listening to us a little bit early. We're generally a little ahead of the curve. You will find the coaches and Brett Veach and more people will start to recognize the fact that, yes, Chris Jones is not enough as the interior pass rush all by himself. Aaron Donald has help as well. It's not all him. You have to be able, even though they are the primary draw of double teams, you have to be able to supplement them inside. And I like what Turk Wharton's done. And I do like the upside of Colin Saunders, but that isn't enough that you can bank on. You got to get this done.
And Saunders has been hurt. Sorry.
Yeah, and that makes it that much more difficult, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would bet that they have at least an acquisition in free agency and a draft choice, if not two in free agency, and you skip that position at the draft unless you get a value that truly fits your board.
Yeah.
And if I was going to do that, I would lay those props as long as all the other combine props that you can go get at betonline.net right now. Then there's the March Madness and all the basketball that you can go get in on the action. If you want to put money on the line, you can certainly do that with odds, props, players' performance, all the podcasts, the scores, everything that you need this season to make informed decisions and put your money in the right spot. That includes hockey and basketball and boxing and I don't know. Evidently, there won't be baseball this year, so we'll skip that for now. But you guys will have a shot when it does happen.
They may have a prop bet on whether or not there's going to be a season and when it starts.
If there isn't, there certainly should be. You can find that at BetOnline. Just use their new website. It looks great even on a mobile. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. So now it comes down to let's go through, and I know we haven't even touched on the offensive side of the ball. There's not that much to do over there, but do we want to prioritize yes or no's here, or do we want to talk about free agency and then draft?
I think we need to decide whether or not they're going to go where we think they're going to restock at positions.
Okay.
So let's start at defensive end. I think it's the biggest one that makes sense to start with. I think defensive end, they're going to have to sign somebody in free agency. I just can't imagine that they're going to get away with not. And I'm not saying it has to be a big name free agent because those are the guys that cost a lot of money, although they could. But I think that they're going to have to sign somebody in free agency and then add in the draft.
Agreed. It has to be both. There's no way around it.
Right. Defensive tackle, I think that they could go either direction.
Yes, and I will say this is one position that I don't feel they have to do both.
True. No, I agree with you on that. I think that that's valid. If we start back at linebackers, I get the thought process of needing to add somebody for agency because you would have so much youth. But I could see them going either direction on that too.
I think you have to have a free agent, a lower end, one designated to be a backup. We're not talking about replacing a starter or starter.
So you're talking like a Ben Neiman type.
Not necessarily.
And I say that
somebody that isn't.
Sorry, I just mean what I meant by that is somebody that's going to step in and be like a reserve type role, and somebody that's going to step in on certain downs.
Yes, somebody's got experience watching film, understands what tactics are being used against them, that kind of thing. Can play some teams still, and can be there probably in multiple positions in case of injury.
Fair enough. Okay, corner.
I think it has to be both. And that does include re-signing Charvarius Ward. So if they do that and they drafted a guy, I'm good with that. And Ward's an interesting case. I hear a lot of people talking about him today, including Brett Veach. And here's my thing. I think they should re-sign Charvarius Ward. I think he's a good outside corner.
Hold on. Can you say that again one more time?
Yeah. I think he's a good number 2 outside corner.
Okay.
I think they still have to go out and get a number 1. or they have to get a prime nickel and let L'Jarius go be the other number one, because Ward and Fenton on the field at the same time has been problematic this season. We've seen it, whether it's the penalties, whether it's the blown over the top passes. You have to have more depth. If Travaris Ward is your third or your fourth corner, you are in stellar shape. So that's what I'm saying. Like, bring him back. Just don't designate him as he has to be their top corner.
Well, I think he's going to be the top corner if he's brought back, but because I think he's going to be brought back at a premium, or at least closer to a premium than really what we would expect him to get. But I think he's a great corner. I think he deserves to get a second contract from Kansas City. So, we'll see how that ends up. Safeties.
Yes, and yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, that's not to say Devin Key is out of the picture. He might develop. Zane Anderson, I still feel, has a ways to go, but he can develop. Armani Watts he's a special teams player. Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So you need at least 2 in this offseason, possibly more, if you don't feel you're getting development from those 2 guys.
Yeah, and I guess I will answer this question because we got asked on Locked On Chiefs whether or not Honey Badger's back. I would like to see him back. I can't see it happening because I can't see him taking a deal south of $12 million a year, which is about where I think Kansas City would have to land for him to come back.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying,
but you're probably right.
I'm not saying that he isn't valued at what he's going to get in the market, but I just can't see Kansas City paying it.
And I think there'll be other teams that are more desperate for his services and what he is capable of doing, being able to play the nickel some, all the things that he does, and they will pay to the point that is commensurate with the top 5 safeties.
Right, and if he wants to be a top 5 paid safety, that's not going to be in Kansas City.
Yeah,
Kansas City just can't afford to do it, even if I think they really probably want to. I just don't think that they can do it. So, but I do think that kind of gets us through the defense. I think that you're right. I think they're going to have to – we didn't really get into it. Are they going to look at free agency or draft? Yes, and yes. Is that what you were meaning by that? Yeah, both. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was getting
just wanted to be clear.
I think they could double dip in either free agency or the draft. I think it's that much of a need. And quite frankly, I think it's a really interesting crop of middle tier safeties that are going to be available in the draft.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. People look at this draft and they look at different position groups, and I keep getting questions, do you think the Chiefs can draft a wide receiver? Do you think they can go draft a safety? Do you think they can do this? Drafting at 30, if you're going to stay at 30, who knows where they're going to go? I mean, you can't pick a spot out and say, I'm going to go get this guy, because more than likely that guy isn't going to be there.
That's how you get a Breland Speaks.
Yep.
Yeah, you cannot do that, actually. You have to avoid doing that.
Right. Yeah, if you want a guy, if there's a guy that you want, you have to probably trade up to go get him, would be my guess.
I agree. So, we got to finish this out, though. On the backside, we got to talk to some of our friends here real quick. So what else haven't we covered that we have to make a decision about how they should go about this?
Running back.
I could see both. At this point, I'm not sold that Jerick McKinnon can come back. He did provide a nice spark.
Is it because of the cost?
It's honestly because of the cost, but I think every year and every touch he gets older, he loses a little bit. I thought he was as drastic a difference as he was on the upside in terms of explosiveness from the rest of the Chiefs running backs. He wasn't as explosive as he was as the last time I saw him on film. And so that tells me age is catching up here. And it's almost to the magic number. So I think that while it is an outside possibility, I think they have to get somebody in free agency with experience that can support that room and has a little bit more physical upside. And they have to go get either a late round draft pick or a UDFA or 3.
Yep. So you don't think they're bringing back Darryl then?
I think it's going to be hard. I think someone will be in line again, like Matthew, to give Darryl a much better contract than the Chiefs can afford to give him. Yep. And I think that there are systems in which he can fit a little bit better as well.
I agree with that. And did you see Seth's article about not bringing back the fullback? Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Oh yeah, we had words. Yes.
Yeah.
We had it out on RGR the other night, the Thursday night show, folks. Chief in the North is now a show on RGR if you guys haven't seen that. Yeah, it was not comfortable because he wanted to say that within reach of me. That was silly. Me and Mike Burton are going to show up on his doorstep.
Maybe with Anthony Sherman if you're not careful.
Hey, and Sherman's armed now, folks.
Yeah, that's true. Tight end.
Tough one.
Yep.
I like the draft options. They're just none of them are, I think, ready to step in and be a 2 that plays significant snaps. So it may be.
But is a 2 going to step in and play significant snaps? I guess that's.
I think it has to. I think it has to.
Okay.
They have to go back to the 3 tight end sets. They have to run more doubles. They have to be able to run the ball. That is perfectly clear to me. If you didn't see that playoff run and you still think they don't need to run the ball more, I have to show you more film, because they have to be able to run the ball more when they get light boxes, especially when people are going to drop out and spy them. We'll only rush 3. It's ridiculous. You have to make them pay. And double tight is the easiest way to force that action.
QB.
Yeah, they have to go get one. I'm guessing it's probably free agency, because I do think that they prefer to have a veteran with some kind of experience. But maybe the addition of Nagy changes that, like we talked about the other day. Where do you stand?
I'm torn. I think they could go either direction. I think I could see a free agent. I could also see them. I expect them to draft a QB, especially with as many 7ths as they have.
Right.
And again, I will say this: there's no way that Brett Veach picks 8 times in this draft. I'm just going to throw that out there. He is not picking 8 times in this draft, especially 3 7ths. That's just not going to happen.
I was going to say they have 9 total right now, right?
Oh, is it 9? Okay, sorry. I don't even think he picks 8. So I think he's
because I was going to say I
away
think
picks.
it could see 8, but
yeah, I think he still trades away picks to where he's only picking 6 or 7. Okay, so what I left was right tackle, because I feel pretty good about the rest of the offensive line, huh?
And one other major position.
Oh,
yes,
I
right
left
tackle.
I left that purposely for last.
I think this is probably my biggest asterisk. I am not as impressed with the tackle class as a lot of people are, particularly those that are not the top 3 tackles in this offensive line class. I think a lot of guys have been artificially pushed up in the media so far. I don't think there are 4 top 15 tackles in this class. As I see the film, I'm guessing most of the league sees it the same way. It only takes one to make me wrong, but right now I only see 3 tackles in the top 15 that deserve those spots.
I was going to say, but you also don't know, just because more tackles may go doesn't mean that they're going to be valuable and worth it. I mean, you won't know that for 4 or 5 years. Right.
And that's what I'm saying. So if they get to the mid to late rounds, they get into day 3 and there's somebody that they have, a 3rd round grade on, or, a 4th, and they get into, the bottom of the 5th round, they may be in a position where, that value is outstanding enough that they feel they should take a chance on it. Much like we saw with them trading back in to get Bo P. Keys, so they can avoid missing out on him as a UDFA or whatever. Yep. I think that could be a move for the right tackle spot.
Yeah, and what I would say on that regard is it doesn't matter whether or not Keys actually hit, because you're looking at trying to get specific guys that you want. So that's really what matters. Yeah. So I saved the best for last. Wide receiver.
Yeah. Yes and yes. They have to double dip, in my opinion.
Yeah. And your double dip doesn't include re-signing Byron Pringle, I would imagine.
No, that does. I think they have to.
Well, no, I understand that, but I guess that isn't your free agent move, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
No, you're correct. They have to sign a free agent person capable of starting opposite Tyreek Hill. Point blank, end of story. And then they can add on a draftable guy that maybe has the talent, especially at 30. I think there's going to be a couple of receiver options. It's going to be about them and the edges, in my estimation, about who's the better value there when they choose. But that doesn't preclude them from taking a wide receiver even first, but certainly not in the top 100. I expect a top 100 wide receiver.
Okay. Yeah, and I can't argue with that. I do think that regardless of what they do in free agency, I think that they have to double dip, especially if they're going out and getting a 1-year rental type, like a Juju or some other guy similar to that, and just doing a big 1-year deal or even a lowball 1-year deal that they think can start. The big thing, and here's the key, and it's always been the key with me when it comes to Andy Reid. We talked about this on, what was it, Tuesday show or Monday show? No, it's Tuesday show. Wide receivers don't generally get drafted by Andy Reid and start early.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be drafting a wide receiver, this is you draft him this year, expecting them to take over as a starter in 2023.
Yeah.
That's
And
the way
that
I
could
look
be
at it.
London, that could be Bell, that could be Dotson, a number of different guys that
Williams.
look like they have the talent, possibly. Although I hear that the league is not scared of his injury. So,
Well, yeah, I can't imagine he's actually going to be there, but it's a
yeah.
pipe dream for me.
But I'm saying
What's the tall guy's? Crap, I can't
London.
remember. No,
You're
it's
thinking,
not London. The guy that's 6'4".
oh, Christian Watson?
Yeah, I'm not saying at 30.
Yeah, he's a third-round pick. Yeah, he's a third-round
I'm
pick.
not saying at 30. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, and that's saying, but I am saying the guys that do have first-round talent, in my opinion, like London, like Jahan Dotson, even Bell. I think those guys are options that you could see starting a year out. And so having that 1 year rental ahead of them only makes them more dynamic and allows them to kind of have that redshirt year like Pat had to get into the Reed offense and still, I think, be able to be productive in the second half, much like we had hoped to see Noah Gray do that. I think that this wide receiver group, if you draft a first round talent, it's okay to put him behind a starting free agent receiver for a year.
Yeah, especially considering how many times wide receivers run on and off the field. I mean, you're not playing 100% snaps. You can definitely draft somebody in the first round, and I'm not going to be upset about it if they draft a first round wide receiver and he doesn't see, 50% of the snaps until, even if he never sees 50% of the snaps in the first year, you can make his snaps valuable enough and get him in the right positions for him to make plays. That is a bigger deal, and I think that's really what's key.
Yeah, I agree. It's not going to be a year on offense like you saw with Creed and Trey. It's not going to be plug them in and let them go.
Still could be, but
unless
probably
they completely swing and miss and they take their chances that way. Like the goal shouldn't be to do that with a wide receiver.
No, and I agree with that. I'm just saying it's possible. I mean, injuries happen, so you hope it doesn't happen, but we'll have to see.
Yeah,
a lot to think about when we talk about the draft and the free agency. We have a lot more to cover soon.
A ton coming at you. Please, if you would, check out the Locked On NFL show on YouTube and everywhere else, and Locked On NFL Draft show with me and Crocker. We'll take you through all the prospects, who we're watching, what's going on. A lot of combine reaction coming in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll get into the pro day. So hope you guys are ready for it. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Thanks for taking the time.